what is holistic resiliency? Well, the thing about resiliency, or the ability to bounce back from a difficulty, which is the technical term, is a state, not a thing. So what I'd like to do in this video is walk you through kind of the 5 steps of what make up holistic resiliency, very briefly, and just to give you a sense of the potential of what these practices may offer you in order to recover from all the daily stressors of life and how to build your response to them in such a way that's still honest. It's not like, oh no, I'm okay, really, I'm okay. It's more like, I'm not okay, but it's okay. Or, surprisingly, that doesn't bother me like it used to. Or, some tragedy happens and you're actually able to say, okay, I know what I need right now because I've been in practice. So those are the things that I want you to have as a result. So one of the first kind of concept of holistic resiliency, and just so you know, these are based in the 5 elements of Chinese medicine, which is so awesome. So the first thing that I like to approach is the earth element, which is your nourishment, what you are feeding your body. Now, I can go way deep into that and we can talk about blood sugar responses and all that, but basically it's about fat. Your nervous system is covered in fat. So the first step of holistic resiliency is fixing your fatty acid profile. Right? Enough omega-3s, so on and so on. I won't go too deep. But just so you know, take a look at what kind of fat are you eating and is it good fat? Because boy, you need it. There's so much research to show how that affects the mind, body, nervous system, environment. All right. So the other thing about earth is, of course, earthing. Right? Getting your feet on the ground. Those of you who have earthed know exactly what I'm talking about. Forest bathing, or just take your shoes off and go stand out in a little patch of grass. That is a big connection for me. All right, so the second part of holistic resiliency is your structure, right? This is the part that people will buck at sometimes, like discipline has its place, right? So this is the metal element. This is about your relationship to time, or what I like to call time therapy. So it is about mindfulness in the moment, but it's also about shrinking your sense of what you need to do into tiny bits of time. And when you start living in the moment and not projecting out into the future or going back into the past, staying in the moment, and there's lots of tools and ways to do that using timers and that sort of thing. We call these micro moments. And in these micro moments, everything is okay. Like right now, everything is okay. And when you're really stressed out because and dealing with a lot of stress from the static, whether it's physically from illness or whether it's psycho-emotional stress from perception, when you bring it into the moment, oh my gosh, it helps so much. So these micro moments are part of that. But one of the things that when you curtail time in your time therapy, it gives you a moment to affirmatively frame what's going on. Like just backing up, stepping into the reality of now, and then you see the story and you can have a chance to kind of frame it a little differently. So I'm looking over here because this is my little list. But that is the metal element, and it kind of allows you to set up structures in your life that create a sense of safety for your nervous system because it needs that. Now, the next is completely the opposite of that, and that is free flow, right? You need some structure, you need some free flow. So in the water element is where we explore our wildness, right? Where we flow. It is the impulses that come out from our intuition and our deep knowing that we have to learn how to trust. And to trust that, sometimes we have to put aside all the things we've been told and go deep into our subconscious, where a lot of the wisdom is in our shadow side, right? So that's kind of exciting stuff. So the one thing about free flow is it does come improvisationally, right? You can't control water, right? Your container will help you direct it, but ultimately, if you want to be like water and you want to float in the freedom of water to really release it all, you have to be able to embrace a little bit of wildness. So that's really fun. And how this affects you in daily life is this giant nerve that you have that informs all of your responses. And your resiliency is your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve, the wandering nerve, loves improvisation. It loves to be able to be free to sound, to make sounds. So there's lots of ways to not only get your body to free flow, but to begin to trust that this free movement and this free speech has a place in your life. And it's a huge part of building your strength to rebound from difficulties. And the next is your wood element, right? This is your outreaching. This is your creativity. So you can see how that wildness would inform your ability to trust your creative process, right? The symbols that start to emerge from this deep wildness. Now, also, the wood element is about being flexible, learning how to have a flexible mind, embracing a larger paradox, right? This is where you use the tools of yes and rather than yes but, and to be able to hold a larger possibility that yes, I have this very difficult thing going on right now. Yes, I hurt. Yes, I don't see a way out. And there is always possibility. There is also resource. There is also potential to change, right? So I can hold both of these things and know that they can live at the same time. I can be okay and not okay. So that is the blessing of that flexible mind, the flexible body. And there's lots of activities that help you really embrace that growth. And it also is a great way to help you be flexible in your relationship with others, because that's also, the wood element is also the place where we learn how to correctly communicate our needs, our feelings, our ability to listen. So that's what's in that tool. And lastly, we come to the fire element. This is your mind that lives in your heart, right? And there's this is the place where prayer lives. This is the place of congruence, where your insides match your outsides. It's appropriateness. It's being able to see the world through the energy of your heart and the sense of benevolence. Right? To be able to both receive and give and live in this sense of benevolence, right? So being able to measure this congruence between the mind and the heart is really an amazing science. And there are actually physical tools that you can use through heart math and through some of these other technologies that you can actually measure this. So this is where we maybe use a little technology, but certainly don't have to. But learning to feel what congruence feels like. Because this is the summer sense I talk about, the summer sense. It embodies all of your emotions, all of your senses, and all of your feelings, and helps you figure out where they go. Like, what do I do with this information? And then how do I respond to it? So as we build holistic resilience, some of the things that start to show up, like I mentioned in the beginning, is that when you begin to nourish your nervous system with healthy fat, your highs and lows become more steady. When you begin to create structures, you start to get a sense of time and your relationship to time, and you don't always feel like you're never catching up. You truly are caught up. You are right here, right now. And you also can see where things fit in your life and your schedule. So that time therapy. And you can strengthen your vagus nerve, because your vagus nerve doesn't necessarily like constraint. It wants to be able to speak. It wants to be able to flow. So we find our free flow in that water element, and then it informs our ability to communicate, because we've discovered some of that, what the shadow's trying to teach us, what we're trying to learn, how you really feel. Because if you just keep showing up to work every day because you've been asked to, and you just feel like your deep well of water is running out, then creating that time and space to be able to go down in there and say, what do you need? And then you start to learn how to ask for it. And that's where in this wood element, we start to be able to ask for help or ask for what we need, say how we feel. Begin to set boundaries, those sorts of things. So in this wood element, we start to get creative in our relationships, and we start to get larger in our sense of flexibility and possibility. And then lastly, because we've done this work, you become able, with these good relationships that you've created, with this discovery of how you feel, you then are able to sit still comfortably. Now, you don't ever have to sit still. It's totally okay if you don't. But what I have found is that the gift of doing this work is that it becomes calmer, quieter, more authentic, like not a forced meditation, but to learn how to become congruent with the chattery mind, to feel good in all those states and realize what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and begin to trust your sense of intuition. What we're discovering in this new era of life, and in this all this unearthing of all this very sort of ugly stuff that we're starting to see in our communities, and wow, I didn't know that there were racists next door, and the Me Too movement, and we're really starting to see all the shadows that come up. And it affects us, especially if you already have these sort of embedded triggers in you and how they make you feel, that you are able to be resilient in that, to continue to be of service, but also be able to break down. And because your vulnerability is strength, to be able to say to the person that cares about you, here's what's going on with me. And then you discover, oh my gosh, I'm less tired. I have more energy. I don't get sick as often. My immune system isn't all freaking out, because I am processing my psychoneuroendocrine process. Now hang with me. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but the way your mind informs your body, which then informs your nervous system, which then informs your immune system, which informs how you respond to life. That's what we're rebuilding here. So it is my delight to share this information with you and the myriad of tools. So if you'd like to go on this journey with me and start to discover which of these is really kind of your strong suit and which of these sort of doesn't come natural for you, I actually use some astrology to look at your genetic code, both genetically in your physical makeup, but also genetically in your mental emotional makeup, based on your astrological patterning, which some people are like, no, thank you. But hey, I have found it to be very accurate and to help inform what kind of your strengths are and what you can, I don't want to call it work on, because you're not forcing these changes, but just to say, hey, this doesn't come naturally to me. How can I bring people into my life that sort of help remind me to do this other stuff? All right. So I would love to help guide you through this process, or even if you don't work directly one-on-one with me or come to one of my workshops, just reading through the material, if you get one little tool that becomes an anchor for you in the storm, then I have done my work. I am Julia Thie, and I would love the opportunity to share some time with you and hear about your strengths and struggles and how you navigate the journey. And I appreciate you and wish you well. And here's to our communal transformation.